Hello everybody and welcome back. It's Creative Redundancy back again, also known as CR. And thanks for tuning in on this live stream, or if you're catching the replay. Now, this is going to be about camping trip stories with some chit chat. Now, I'm no expert in survivalism, bushcrafting, or preparedness. Just trying to learn more and put that knowledge into something constructive. So basically this video, live stream / replay, is about the last few camping trips, more specifically the last camping trip I made, with some stories and some things or lessons learned from them, plus additional things that I'll show. So let me whip up the side chat here, let some people come in here. While I wait for some people to drop in here, I appreciate anyone that can drop in, even for a minute or two. I appreciate the watch time. Thank you very much for taking the time to drop in, as you can. Or if you can't watch this while it's live right now, you're catching a replay. So I appreciate it. Hi, Puppy's Breath. Yay, camping stories. Yeah. Alright, let's open up with my intro. Intro time! And boom! CR's in the house. As you can tell by the title. Ooh, camping trip stories and some chit chat. Let me whip up the side chat here so I can actually see what I'm doing here. So I'll probably go for maybe an hour-ish, give or take. I don't know. Hopefully I don't crash the system and have to stitch parts together or have parts 2 and 3. Anyways, I mentioned a couple weeks back I was going on a camping trip. Now I do not have footage for this camping trip because I decided I just wanted to relax, not feel pressured about doing a video, and just do things on my own, just learn things, not feel pressure to be like, oh, I gotta shoot video, and just enjoy the camping trip, enjoy the experience, not necessarily have content for a video. But I decided, I'm like, you know what, I'll share a couple stories here and a few additional things, and like I said, some lessons learned and stuff like that. Thanks, Puppy Breath, I appreciate it very much so. So I've been on a handful of camping trips, still waiting to count them over my 2 hands, but you know, and sometimes they vary from quick overnight relatively safe trips to trips that might take, you know, 3 to 4 to 5 days with, you know, 3-4 nights overnight. Sometimes I'm going with people, sometimes I'm not. Sometimes I'm alone, relatively close to civilization or a safe zone, all the way out, you know, 100 kilometers away from my residence here. Yes, exactly. Sometimes just enjoy the moment, not feel pressured, and that's what I wanted to do. So let's see here. Where should I start? Well, basically, I'm gonna really tell the story about the last camping trip, which about 3 weeks ago, back in July, uh, close to the end of the month of 2018, July. Was gone for about five days. Four. Let me see here. Saturday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Actually, I'm sorry. It's actually six days and 5 nights. I keep forgetting. Yeah, I have to count again. Yeah, 6 days and 5 nights. Arrived on like a Saturday, left on a Thursday. Yeah, I had to remember. Basically, my idea behind it. I mean, I saw the forecast ahead, the extended forecast, the long range forecast beforehand, just to see, maybe I should tweak what I'm bringing just in case. Now, I ended up bringing rain gear anyways, which was useful. Definitely useful. So, let me go get it. So here's the poncho I brought. Now this is not one of those convertible type of ponchos that you can make into like a tarp or a shelter like setup. I do have them, but this is not the one. This is just basically, rain gear. Now this has no hood on it. Now this actually did come in handy on the last trip, because actually it did start to rain and I actually had to go back outside the tent shelter setup that me and my friend, well, and some other people helped set up, because I had to, reinforce and make sure everything's down to like the stakes and make sure my tarp's not flipping and flopping over the place. As it did rain that one time and I had to bring this out, I was just like, poof, I'm glad I brought this. So, some rain gear, definitely useful. Now, I mentioned it in the last, yes, I did mention it in the last video, which is actually the last live stream, about preparedness and survivalism, which I'll try to remember to, well, you can check out that last one if you haven't checked it out already. Now, basically, when I was setting up camp, I was just, well, what happened was, this last camping trip that I went on, I had, remembered from the previous camping trip. Now, this camping trip, this 6 day, 5 night thing, I actually do this more annually, around in July. It's not like a really major event, but let's just say there's a lot of people in this event area. So, and like I said, I've done this before, years past and stuff like that. Well, basically, the year before, 2017, in the same area, I had shelter issues, unfortunately. Let's just say it got really, really windy, and unfortunately things happened, and, learning and remembering that experience from the last time. Let's just say, it's the first time I ever saw a tent go 360 in the air. Yeah, that's how windy it was. I'm pretty sure it was gale force type of winds. Maybe 50, 60 kilometer an hour. And probably maybe gusting up quite forcefully, let's just say. So, remembering all that, and a few other things that I learned from the year before and from this year, I applied it this year onto this camping trip. So basically, instead of, like I said, I was with a bunch of people. Instead of kind of separating too much, we kind of overlapped, stayed closer together, and shared, well, two tarps, which I'll get into that story too. Hello, Texas Little Star, and hello, Billy Bird. Thank you for taking the time to drop in. I appreciate it. Oh, yeah, it was a small tent, but still, that was the first time I've ever seen a tent do 360. Now, we weren't the only ones with issues, too. Other people had issues, too. I saw metal frames collapse. I was like, wow. So it wasn't just me or just us. I was just like, so basically, I learned the lesson from that. And this year on this trip, on this 6-day, 5-night trip, made sure the shelter was bomb-proof, bulletproof, windproof, rainproof as much as possible, reinforcing it, taking more time at it, and not, taking it for granted. So basically, when we were setting up camp, finding the perfect shelter site. Now, this camping trip I took on, like I said, there's lots more people and stuff like that. It's a more open area, so it's not like there's a lot of trees and wind block, natural wind block, which is another reason why the wind picked up and was so forceful the year before. So I made sure, I'm like, when we were driving over there, I was just like talking to my friend who's driving. I'm like, just talking about it for a quick couple of seconds. I was just like, let's not, whatever we did the year before, let's not do that again. Let's make sure it's better this time around. Because, like I said, I saw the forecast ahead in advance. It seemed like there was going to be rain. I knew there was going to be rain, and it did rain occasionally. Sometimes it was pouring rain, and then sometimes it was just quick showers, then the sun came back out and stuff like that. Hello, Amanda. Thanks for taking the time to drop in. I appreciate it. You know what? I could use some more people in blue with blue names, so why not? You can refresh Billy Bird and you'll see that. Anyways, so when we first arrived, finding a campsite, an area that we can, set up camp, tents, and all that stuff, I was just like, oh, let's try this area. It's relatively flat and stuff like that, and I was just clicking. It's not too bumpy to lay a tent on and stuff like that, especially if you're sleeping on the ground. You want it fairly flat, stuff like that. So, we set up a tent we bring out everything out, right? Bring everything out after packing it at home first. And when we were packing, making sure, before we left even, make sure we had, you know, probably important things like cutting tools, saw, axe, hatchet, that kind of thing. The week before, we made sure the tent had the pegs inside and all that stuff. Enough type of cordage and rope to, well, bind everything together. Made sure everything. And I also brought backpack, which is sitting right behind me. So I also brought a backpack here. Now, obviously the gear's not in here right now, but similar things were inside. I had an additional paracord, fire kit, brought a solar lens too, and some other stuff, which includes this right here. Everyone knows what this is. So basically, we got to the campsite. Well, we started making our camp, set up our tents. We also set up a kind of like those sunshade type of tents, or that have the mesh and stuff like that. Well, we basically put them side by side. And basically, the opening of the tent would lead into the opening of the sunshade. So we pretty much extended. So when we exit the tent, we're underneath the sunshade. So it gave us lots of room and stuff like that. So we could still have some privacy, you know, and get access to, like, you know, our stuff fairly quickly. So, you know, after setting up the tent, in the sunshade with mesh and stuff like that, you know, bugs net and stuff like that. So we took, you know, we started to peg it down, right? That's a given. And then we applied tarps on the top. Now, it changed slightly the next day. Like, we improved on it, and I'll get into that story. And I kind of explained it and talked about it in the last video, but basically, in a nutshell, we had about 3 tarps. Now, this one tarp was big enough to cover about 80% of both the tent and the sunshade with the mesh, and we used our 2 tarps to cover the rest, and basically like make a giant rain cover windscreen for it or something like that. But one of the things I learned from that this year around, like, we had 2 tarps. Both of them are big enough to cover everything, but one of them isn't big enough to cover everything. So basically, I was just like, oh, how can we stitch this together? Put these 2 tarps together so we can use it. I was just thinking, I'm like, tape? Nah, can't use tape. Because if it rains hard enough, the tape will wear down in the moisture. So what I decided to do was take both of the tarps. So let's say this piece of paper is the tarps. Overlap them just enough. And remembering smooth rock or round pebble, could be a marble type of method of securing a tarp, or some sort of garbage bag by anchoring it into the ground. I was just like thinking, I'm like, I could do that. So I took a bunch of smooth rocks over the overlap, put the rock in between. So the rock would be in between. So it would be similar to this right here. Make sure this rock was as smooth as possible, so it wouldn't cut into the material too much, and spread the weight evenly. And basically, I tied a compression knot into it, made sure it was tight, and along the overlap, I put 9 of those in there to secure 2 tarps together using smooth rocks and some cordage that we had. And basically, with some help, because it was quite heavy, draped that all over the tent and the sunshade with the mesh, and go from there. And of course, you know, using the saw, the hatchet, and the cutting tools, cut up some wooden stakes. That's A-K-E, not E-A-K. So you don't have to feel hungry yet, but basically, and angle them away from the shelter. So if the shelter was right here, it would be angled away like this. And made sure the cordage that I'm using to bind, tie down everything, was as low to the ground as possible, to prevent it from slipping out, from the wind from picking up so heavily that it'll pull the cordage away from the stake. And, you know, anchor them down. Now, one thing I did try out for this year, just because everyone's familiar with tripping over guidelines and stuff like that, one thing I did do was, on the stakes that we did have, because I brought an awl with me, I punctured a hole through the top of the steak, just a small hole, and using the feathers that are naturally occurring in this area because there's a lake nearby and stuff like that. So honestly, birds, like maybe some that you're hearing right now. Using the feathers, I basically made a hole through the top of the steak and stuck some feathers in there, some white feathers, just so it was no more noticeable. It would flap in the wind, maybe attract your attention. So during the evenings, night times, it's harder to see. Maybe you don't have that flashlight with you, or anyone else that was walking by would notice it and maybe notice, oh, I gotta go around. There's a steak right here. Something I tried out for this year. So, anyways, let's see here. I'm missing some chat here, so I will come back to the story in a sec. All right. Yes, reindeer is useful in lots of forms. Yep. Puppy breath. Yeah, so tarp over the tent. Like, similar to a rain fly. So the water would shed away from the tent. Away from us. So you wouldn't have, like, drops of water gathering and stuff like that and start drooping on the inside. Thanks, Amanda. Just get a hotel. Hey, thanks, Puppy Breath. And Green Man's outdoors getting my attention right here with the cutting tools got your attention. Thanks for dropping in, man. I appreciate it very much. So, okay, Billy Bird, yeah. Uh, we did actually end up eating some other stuff, and I'll get, hot dogs. We had s'mores too this year too. Oh, the s'mores were so good. I could just taste that right now. Golden marshmallow, nice golden marshmallow. Stick the graham cracker and the chocolate together. Or you can get those pre-made type of s'more kits. We were talking about that too for a little bit. Oh, it was so good. Man, I should have had more than two. Oh well, there's always next year, next camping trip and stuff like that. Yes, Billy Bird. Yes, I was. I was just going for the chat real quick. Now I'm caught back up. Yes, more Puppy Breath. Let's see. Okay, so anyways, so we got the setup set up and stuff like that. Now, again, similar to what I said about the smooth rock, I tend not to use grommets on stuff, and for obvious reasons. And another reason why I don't usually use them is because sometimes I gotta tie down the side of the tent, or not the side of the tent, but the side of the tarp. And sometimes the tarps that I have or bring don't have grommets anyways on the side, and I need to anchor it on that side because it's flapping in the wind or whatever, or I gotta elevate it up to let some airflow in, especially if it's sunny up. Because that's the thing about this camping trip scenario, situation this time around. There was rain and it was hot enough. Maybe, 86 Fahrenheit, 30 degrees Celsius in one or two of the days. And sometimes, this one time, the nighttime temperature got below 50 Fahrenheit, below plus 10 Celsius. Maybe around plus 8 or 9. Like, it's cool enough, or cold enough, to start seeing their breath outside. Usually when you start seeing that, yeah, maybe, it's starting to get a little bit cooler. Maybe, and I mean, I brought my wool sweater, which was really nice. Because it made well, I felt warm during the evenings, early mornings when I got up. Uh, I didn't have to worry about sparks from the campfire that we had and stuff like that. So I didn't have to worry about that. Although I did accidentally burn my pants unintentionally. I was messing around with an egg shell, a hard-boiled egg. I was like throwing the shells in the campfire. There wasn't even sparks. It wasn't even a big fire, but for some reason my pant leg got a little hole in it. I was like, oh, really? Oh, Greyman, this is a camping trip story of the previous camping trip, and there might be some other camping trip stories in there too. I do go annually, at least, on this camping trip. And like I said, it's more of an open area, so it's not really in a forest area. So it's more like open plain, open type of field area. And the wind can pick up very easily, and there's not much of a way of a wind block. Hello! It's A-OK Forging and Adventures at a house. Hello! And welcome. Thank you for dropping in. I appreciate it very much. So, let me see here. Thanks, Amanda. Thanks, Amanda. I tried to give enough warning. There's always more room for s'mores, eh, Billy Bird? Uh, Greyman, I've attempted this on a more minimal scale. I mean, I don't tend to winter campus that often, but because usually I need a bigger fire and stuff like that. Or I'm bringing a sleeping bag along with me too. I did this year. Well, this time around I decided to go blankets, sleeping pad, and an additional space blanket, which actually I brought two, instead of bringing a sleeping bag this time around. It was adequate. Didn't freeze. It was warm enough. And, you know, my friend also brought some other gear too, so we had additional blankets and stuff like that if it got cold enough. Which, it got cool enough, like I said. Let me just catch up to the chat here real quick. Oh yeah, hi Gray1107. Thank you for dropping in. I appreciate it very much. You accidentally burnt yourself before? One of these days it'll work. You know, unfortunately, that's what actually what happened to me too. Let's just say I should have wore gloves more often at times. And I mean, like, I brought a multi-tool. The pliers on the multi-tool helped. Definitely. I was just like we had access to a propane type of camp stove too. So, you know, in the mornings, it's like, oh, is it hot? Instead of even trying, like, that has like a bail or a handle on it, I just reached into my pocket, grabbed the multi-tool pliers, just picked it up. I'm like, yeah. So, because I was just like, oh yeah, it's kind of hot. Don't even see the gloves or mitts nearby. I'm like, I'll just grab the multi-tool and use something like that, or use a stick to pick up the bail off this propane heater that we're using to make coffee in the morning. Let me just catch up to the chat real quick as much as possible. Maybe I should put on a slow-mo for this. I didn't think... And I'm already at 20 minutes too. Alright. Billy Bird, you don't like tents that give a false sense of security. Well, that's why I put tarps and tents together. And reinforced it. As much with what we had. I think I had like 8 anchor points on the ground. 4 for the tarps, and another 4 to 6 for both the sunshade with mesh and the tent. I mean, the tarps were pretty heavy, like, for what they are. Like, huge, like, 2 tarps that probably cover enough area for, like, 20 by 40 feet-ish, give or take, maybe roughly around that. Don't hold me to that because I didn't measure it. But it was pretty big. Because I had to roll it back up at the end and all that stuff, and I'll get into that too. Now, let's see. Good luck! Good luck, GL, on that. Have fun hammock camping. I know G Things Outdoors does that a lot, so maybe talk to him and get some pointers. He probably knows more about that and stuff like that. Always reminds me, every time I pick up a hammock, it always reminds me of this comforter he has. But hey, if it works, keeps you warm, keeps the bugs off and stuff like that, hey, it's good enough. Alright, let's see. Alright, Gray. Let's see. Jeez, I gotta catch up to the chat here real quick. You like to camp in your bedroom. Hey. No, actually, I'm not gonna get into that. That'll probably be for another story, another video. Yeah, gotta be careful about that, Amanda. Alright, cool. I've caught up to the chat now, so I can keep going with the stories here. Oh, anyways, when the stakes, I was angling them into the ground, pounding them to the ground, and one thing I kept in mind was, until you can apply pressure, weight on it, maybe even, depending on your weight, stand on it, until then, keep pounding it into the ground. Because if you can't put weight on your stakes, it's probably not in deep enough. It's not going to be able to handle enough wind, especially if the wind picked up a lot more. You know, maybe it's not windy at that moment, but the wind could pick up, especially if you're a more open area. Things like being closer to a lake or whatever, without much natural wind block, wind might gust in real quickly and stuff like that. So I made sure all the all the stakes were in the ground. Sometimes I would check them from time to time just to make sure they're good in the ground. Stand on them, be like put a little weight on them, and it's like, oh, it's holding my weight. Should be good enough. Make sure they're long enough too, because you're like taking this stick right here. Now, obviously, this is too short, but remembering that parts of it have to go into the ground, so, and you need enough on that length still, so I was roughly going about a foot and a half for stakes, using the saw, you know, acquiring some branches and stuff like that to use for that, making sure, another thing was using the straightest part of the stick as possible, because I've seen one year in a similar area where someone had a stake or using it as an anchor point or a pole or whatever. It's slightly bent. I guess the wind picked up the tent, not the tent, but the flap hit the tarp so hard, made the tarp move so heavily or whatever, that the little bend in the branch broke off. It just snapped. So I was remembering that, so that's why I was just like trying to pick the straightest part of the stick. I mean, off the branch to use as a stake. Remembering that. I was just like, yeah, let's not go for that. Now, obviously, nothing happened this year around, but I was just like, whew. When I was talking to my friend at times, I was just like, you know, whatever we're doing right now, whatever is working this year, we got to do it from every other year we do this because it's working. It's working, and if it's working, it's working. Don't change something that's working unless you start having issues, I guess. Welcome back. Welcome back. Gray. Alright, okay, Fortune Avengers, see both of you. Enjoy your hammock campout trip, whenever it is. Probably see video on it. Yes. Thanks, Billy Bird. Oh, thanks, Amanda. Thanks. Alright, Amanda. Thank you for taking the time to drop in. I appreciate it very much so. Enjoy the weekend, too. Or the rest of it. Amanda, I'm always trying to. It's a given. Geez, I'm already at the half an hour mark. Anyways. So, now that I've caught back up with the chat here. So basically, you know, now the shelter's kind of better reinforced and stuff like that. One thing I did realize, and I didn't even think about it before, is as protected as we were from rain and wind during the heat of the day, in the sun, in, you know, 80 Fahrenheit plus, 26 plus Celsius temperatures. Yeah, that's going to protect us from the wind and from the rain, but doesn't let air come through, which means that inside was hot. You go inside, it's like, oh my gosh, it feels like a sauna in here. So we actually had to open up some of the tarp areas just a little to let some air flow through to cool it down on the inside. So basically, there's two things that seem to work for us this year, and I might actually consider it more often. First thing was, again, the smooth rock thing. Same thing again. Use a compression knot like the Arbor or Canadian Jam knot. Tie it at the top. Like, if the tent's, the tarp's all the way up here, and the bottom's like right here. Lift a flap, connect it to the top with a rock, connecting it with a rock. Put the knot in to let some air flow through. Now, another thing that seemed to work too was, if I can get it right here. Not specifically this one, but a little bit bigger one is these kind of binder clips. This seemed to work quite nicely. We actually tried using tarp clips, and it didn't really work as nicely for the ones that my friend brought them, and then we didn't even use them. It wasn't even that useful, but they brought a binder clip. I was just like, it was so easy, just lift the flap, put the clip on, holds the tarp into this one spot, and then open to let the flap, you know, let some air flow through. I was just like, it's nice and easy. So I might reconsider bringing a few of these next time. A few more of these. Because it was quite useful. Thanks, Amanda. I appreciate that very much so. So let's see here. Oh. Coming back to my kind of air pump here. Now this is an air pump that you would use for mostly used for like balloons and stuff like that. Now you probably bring foot pumps or whatever, but I just brought something like this because it was compact enough to fit on the, well, within the backpack that I brought. But basically, it pushes air on the push and the pull. And basically, I was using this to help stoke the fire instead of getting down and stuff like that. I decided not to bring any type of bellows or anything like that. I was just like, I'll just use this. and just stoke the fire like this. Be like, it was nice. It did help. Of course, you know, I probably could have just did it with a fan of some sort, but I decided to bring that. Now, one of my friends there, who I seen again, he graciously donated, because he couldn't fit them, but he graciously donated these gloves to me. He's like, oh, hey, can you fit these? I'm like, yeah, they don't fit me. I was like, I put them on, I'm like, oh, yeah, they fit me, man. Yeah, perfectly. Like a glove. No pun intended, but, you know, not sure where they acquired it, but I was just like, they're pretty good condition still. Little thing coming out. No, there's no major holes in these or anything like that. Probably not, you know, suitable for fire, but I mean, if I'm chopping wood or something like that, maybe I probably wouldn't handle a hot pot or a hot handle per se. But it's like, oh, thanks, I appreciate it. I'll probably add that in somewhere. Maybe I'll be, well, I'll just use them or add them to a specific backpack or kit. Yes, puppy bear. Yes, Amanda's awesome. I appreciate that. Yeah, exactly. Alright, remembering to put these back to where I left them. Now, another thing, while I was out there, campfire, honestly, there was gonna be campfires. That was a given. Right, it was a given. There's no fire ban or anything like that. So I made sure I also brought my char tin to make char material like char cloth or char punk wood, which I'll get into too. So basically, in a nutshell, you put it over a heat source, like a campfire, and basically everything else escapes except for carbon, and you're left with this kind of charcoal-like substance. And you know, depending on the material, it'll take a flame or a spark or a heat source like solar quite easily. So basically, again, here's a piece of material that I actually did use for it, which I've shown in a scavenging video before, is this. It's gotta, whatever you're using, it's gotta be 100% kind of natural. Like, it will burn if you expose it to a flame, for example, long enough. So basically, I would cut that up, put it in here. I made some. Now, I randomly, while we were searching for wood, randomly found a stump that was off the ground, cut, and stuff like that. A bunch of a stump that was mostly like 80% punky type of wood. So like this right here. Punk wood is pretty much fairly spongy and stuff like that, usually dry rotted wood. And basically, I made a whole bunch of char punk wood here, which can take a spark or a flame source or heat source like solar quite easily. Now, also on this trip, I decided to make a walking stick. Why? Just for fun. Just for fun, just to entertain myself, practice and stuff like that. Just took a stick that we already had, removed the outer layer of bark, so I'm removing the outer layer of bark like this, from this to this. We didn't bring any sandpaper, right? I was just like, oh, what can I use to kind of smooth this out so I'm not getting like not blisters, but splinters. I was like, oh wait, we got access to cardboard. So basically, I would just use cardboard and just go back and forth. Now the stick's fairly straight, fairly round. So basically, take the cardboard and go around and kind of compress the fibers together and stuff like that. It worked. And I was just like, okay, what else can I do? So, remembering what I just said about my stakes and how I added a feather onto it with a little hole, I also did that with the walking stick too. So basically, I would put the feather in at the top of the walking stick, bunch of feathers. It was nice. I took a step further. Using the charm punkwood, I wrote on the surface of the stick some words, which I'm not gonna get into because it was more for fun anyways. But I wrote it in. On the next sunny day, since I did bring a solar lens, a magnification type of lens, I wrote it in and solar engraved the letters into it, so it would be more permanent, or at least more long lasting. And everyone enjoyed that. I was just like, even at the end of the trip, everyone's like, "Oh, aren't you done take your walking stick?" I'm like, nah. I made that for fun. I can make that anytime I want to. I just made that for fun, and I was making it to show people too, because it was interesting and kind of, you know, sets our camp area a little bit different from everyone else's. More noticeable when people are like, "Oh, where's the camp area?" I'm like, "Oh, it's the one that has the stakes with the feathers." They're like, "Really?" I'm like, "Yeah." Yes, Billy Bird, yes, you can char punk wood and other natural type of materials. Let me just read up on the chat here. Oh, yeah. That's another thing, too, about tents or tarps. When you're setting it up or putting it down, winds are an issue. And that's why I was talking to my friend. I was like, I knew on that weekend, I was like, that Sunday's supposed to be windier. Let's go the day before. And actually, the next day it was windier, so it would have been harder to set up camp. Because when the wind's blowing, it's just like a big sail. Like, it's cool and all if you're just making a little smaller type of shelter tent setup, but I'm talking about we're setting up tents and larger scale of shelter. So the tarps are bigger and stuff like that. A little gust of wind, it'll be like, oh, where you gonna try to anchor it into the ground somehow, and I mean, it would be difficult to do it on your own, especially something that's taller than you. You're 6 feet. Well, the top of your tarp or tent setup is 7 feet, and you're still trying to reach over and get your tarp over. Now, one thing I did try doing was to get my line across the tarp. I mean, the tents and the sunshade that we have with mesh. I used a stick, tied that quick arbor Canadian jam knot, and it was just like, fire in the hole, and I shot it over just to get the line over. It was easier to do it like that. I was just like, yep, to get to the other side so I can start anchoring the tarp now, or tarps now. Oh yeah, great. I mean, like, yeah, you gotta watch out for wind when you're setting up. Definitely, or taking out. Yeah, exactly, great. Some weight or using a natural stake with some cordage or an anchor point, like on a corner, right? Where that's the last thing you do. Stuff like that. Now, when I was packing up, it was windy that day. It was actually quite hot, so I didn't have to worry about that so much. But if you're gonna use your backpack that has weight in it, use water. The water you're bringing, like we brought water and stuff like that. Something like that. Especially if you're on your own with no help from anyone else. something to keep in mind. Or use maybe heavier branches and logs to weigh it down, stuff like that. Especially if it's flapping in the wind. Yes, and puppy breath. Yes, I've shown that before on a different video. Oh yeah. Not everyone weighs enough. Even if you weigh enough, sometimes the wind can pick up so strong. I mean, especially the bigger the tarp is, that's a big sail. That's, that's, if it's strong enough wind, that can actually start carrying you. It is possible. Oh, you're quite welcome, Gray. It's just something that I like, thinking on your feet, and it's sort of like, oh, what do I have? I'm like, okay, I got this. Let's throw a branch, heavier branch on and stuff like that. So, anyways, what was I saying? So basically, I made a whole bunch of char punk wood and stuff like that, char cloth and stuff like that. Randomly, every time we had a fire, I just stick my tin on there. I actually brought right here, but little like tongs just so I can pull it out and stuff like that. It was easier. And flip the char tin so the other side would char. Well, the other side could heat up and start charring the other side of the material, stuff like that, and evenly cook it per se, heat it up. What was I gonna say here? Yeah, another thing was one when I was making a campfire. I made a few here and there. I didn't make a solar fire this time, but I did use both a flame source like a lighter and a sparking source like a ferro rod with some charcoal. But basically, one thing I kept in mind was about fire, and I always keep it in mind, is surface area. A wise teacher once told me the secret to fire is surface area. So I kept that in mind. Now, obviously, this is not the fender stick that I made, but remembering fender sticks, I was showing some people some fender sticks. So I'll randomly show a fender stick right here. Spin it around here. Now this is a very small version of it. What I made out there was definitely not as three-dimensional as this, and quite much bigger, but you get the idea. Lots of surface area and stuff like that. And basically go from there, increase the surface area. I think I used either a lean-to for one of the fires, because I did it on the ground without a fire pit or anything like that. I did use a lean-to or an A-frame like fire relay. So basically there's stuff on the ground. Usually it's like, well, an A-frame type triangle type of shape. Very fine stuff. The easiest stuff to light up here. Next, fine stuff there. And thicker and more coarse stuff as the higher it gets. So I would light the bottom, and the heat would travel up, and the flames would start traveling up. Stuff like that. Especially that one day that I did do it, because, like I said in the previous live stream, it rained that day, and the wood that we were requiring was still damp on the outside. I was just like, oh, this ain't just gonna start up by itself. Yeah, I can, per se, use cat fuel or whatever. I was like, no. It's not an emergency. We're not time crunched for it. I was like, yeah, I'm gonna practice. Practice some things. Practice some better stick. Practice this A-frame, lean-to fire lay and stuff like that. Got to go. Made some char material. And put it out after. Because our friends were having a campfire too, so we just went over there. But I was just like, I gotta make sure it's out, and stuff like that. Let's see, what else? Oh, Okay, time to show some things that I picked up on that. There's a few things I scavenged too, but I'll show this first. I literally picked up like an ounce of feathers, and I'm not even joking. Look at all these feathers right here. Some of them I dyed while I was out there, as you can see here. These are all from relatively the same species of birds, seagulls, and stuff like that. Like I said, I was around at late. So, every morning I would just go out and, scavenge some feathers and stuff like that. I was like, ooh, that's a lot of feathers. Actually, it's so warm in here, I think I'll fan myself. Actually, they make pretty good fan. Maybe I should work on making a feather fan. So basically, yeah, that's a whole bunch of feathers. I almost got enough to make like an artificial bird. Just kidding. So that was happening in within the 6 days 5 days that we were there. Another thing is, like, most people were leaving on our 5th and 6th day. So their campsites were taken down and abandoned and stuff like that. Well, these people actually left some stuff behind. I was like, you know what? It's better than it being tossed in the garbage, wasted resources. I was just walking over, I'm like, oh wow, there's so much cordage on the ground. I was just like, some of these people just got too lazy, or their knots are so tight that they couldn't undo them and stuff like that from like not ridge lines, but like anchor lines or guide lines and stuff like that. So I managed to find this blue type of cordage, nothing too special. I also found parachute type of cordage right here. Now these are different, orange, red. Now this, wait, wrong one. This red, it's not all one continuous line. Some of it was separate, and some of them I just had to cut just because I didn't have a choice, or it was already cut. So it's already cut to length, and I didn't have a choice. Now this actually does have 7 strands, but that one of the 7 strands of the individual 7 strands, it only has 2 strands instead of the normal 3. Now this actually has 7 strands, and each 7th strand actually has 3 strands in it. Now this is one continuous amount of orange, and this red is like 3 or 4 shorter lengths stuck together, tied together, and stuff like that. I was just like, sweet! I got some extra cordage here. And I also got some access to some additional metal stakes, some additional cordage. Oh, speak of the red cordage, I actually already made a bracelet out of one, just for fun. Also found some plastic stakes. I was like, I'll use them, add them to my own stuff. Like I said, it was already abandoned. Like these guys been left their campsite for like they're gone, long gone. It's been like hours, half a day went by already, right? I'm like, it's a free game, it's fair enough. And some additional random miscellaneous cordage and stuff like that. Just let me catch up to. No, Billy Bird. I was talking about feathers. Yeah, great. That was a lot of feathers. Wow, you found an axe? Wow. I know there was a lot of pre-cut wood, and unfortunately we didn't have enough room to take it back. Hello, X-Ray Zulu. Thank you for taking the time to drop in. I appreciate it very much. So, unfortunately, you missed like most of the content here. It's okay, man. It's okay. I guess you'll just have to catch the replay. I do think I have the DVR function onto this right now, so you can rewind back, kind of, and speed it up, and try to get back to live time. I think you mean stories, not. Oh no, you actually do mean scores. Yeah, what am I thinking? You do mean that. I love camp scores. Yes, so do I. It always makes me wonder. I'm like, when I was putting together this anchoring points and not ridge lines, but anchor points and guidelines and stuff like that, I made sure not to use such heavy knots that I couldn't undo them at the end. Because every time per se, if you're setting up a shelter, for the most part, you're probably gonna have to take it down again, especially if you're camping. Because obviously you're there only temporary and not making a permanent type of shelter. So I basically stuck with knots that I can undo easily, stuff like that. Easy compression knots. I think I used the Arbor Canadian Jam knot quite a bit on that. Quite a bit, actually. Yeah, quite a bit. Quite a bit. And it was showing some people that it's funny how some people don't know simple knot. Even the Arbor or Canadian Jam knot. I was like just showing people, they're like, oh hey, this is easy to learn. I'm like, yeah, it's a simple knot. Now you can start learning about air knots and stuff like that, which I'm actually trying to get into more. And practicing stuff. Like the butterfly knot, bowline type of knots and stuff like that. For fixed loops and stuff like that. Trying to learn them more. Trying to apply them in the real world too. Learning by applying them in the real world, by practicing because I want to do it or I need it. Okay. Okay, Billy Bird. Oh wow, great. That's really really old. Like that's 60 coming up to 70 years old. Wow, that's really old. Hello, Royce. Thank you for taking the time to drop in. I appreciate it, man. I haven't seen you around in a while, so I appreciate you taking the time to drop in. So yeah, I mean, I found enough stuff to start adding to stuff. I was just like, woohoo! Score! Oh yeah, but that's for a single person, right? X-Ray Zulu for a single person. If you're setting up more larger tent, a sunshade, way more surface area for a tarp, sometimes you need a couple more anchor points, stuff like that, and still allow some air to travel through. But that's from my experience, from when I go do this. Oh, you're terrible at knots? Hey, I used to be terrible at knots too. Then I think it's kind of, once you learn it, you're just like, wow, this is easier than I thought. I should have done this a long time ago. And you're like, well, at least now you know it. Better to know it now than never know it at all. Versus some people's knots were so like so tight. Like, yeah, they're secure, but became a hassle to undo them at the end. Stuff like that. So I made sure You know, I can still undo them at the end of the camp out trip. You know, at the end of day 6 or whatever. Now, another thing that I also kind of start doing too with, like, everyone's familiar with pegs and stuff like that, metal pegs and stuff like that. Sometimes it can be annoying to pull them out of the ground. One thing I started to do lately more is, instead of trying to pull them out with just your arms, your hands, cordage again would help with the situation. So basically, I would just get it enough to get a line underneath it, and using a long enough piece of cordage. So basically, I would just take like a cordage like this. It'd be like anchored in like this, and pull it out with my body weight. So use just not my arms to lift the peg out, but leg muscles, my full body. So easy. I was just like, okay, there's 1, 2, you know, and so forth and so forth. I was just like, yeah, wow, I didn't realize cordage was gonna be so handy, but I guess so. So definitely something else I'm gonna keep in mind from now on too. Maybe it gave me more leverage, or is easier just because I can use more muscles, use my full body, legs, and not just my arms trying to pull out, trying to pull out just a little, but actually just be like, you know, pull up with, you know, arms, the legs, you know, your full body. Oh yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, I was using cordage to pick up bundles of wood and stuff like that. It's just like I like it was like literally, and I still here and there do it from time to time. Now, not specifically this size, but basically I would actually just make a loop of some sort, maybe an arbor knot or a Canadian jam knot or whatever. But basically, I would make a sash from it, just and just bring that along with me. It was so useful a lot of times. Oh, get firewood, okay. Oh, I gotta move this paint, okay, you know, and stuff like that. Or let's say I still have my keys in my pocket too, right? I keep oops, I keep a clip like this on my keys, or some sort of diaper safety like pin like this one right here. So basically I could just not anchor them, but tether it to me, to the cordage, so it was always with me, especially if my pockets were then full, or maybe I was going around with shorts with that and have no pockets, right? Not everyone always has pockets at times. I'm like, oh, where can I put my keys? I want to keep this stuff with me, right? Keys with me and stuff like that. So I was just like, oh, I'll just anchor it to the cordage I have, and I have sashed around my body, around my chest. So it would be like that, or like that, depending how you see it. You're quite welcome, Gray. I appreciate your channel support very much so. And I like to hear some of the stories from some other people. And realize, you know, I'm not the only one that experiences things. I'm not the only one that can learn things. Maybe I'm learning from you guys too. You know, I know you guys say, oh, I'm learning from UCR, but hey, I'm learning from you guys too. You know, we're all here to learn and try to improve, make progress, small little progress forward to make that big improvement at the end. A burden strap? Like, actually, I actually have a tow rope like strap that I have usually with this bag too, so I didn't bring it out, but I could have used it. It's just that some of the wood piles weren't that big, weren't that heavy, so it wasn't that bad. I remember that Now, I mentioned about the big stump that I brought back to camp that I found that was mostly punky wood. Now, it was still heavy enough. Instead of, you know, driving it back or whatever, I actually used cordage. Again, I tied some cordage around it and basically used it as a way to, like, using the arbor cane jam knot, wrap it around, tie it around, so it'd be like something similar to this, tied around. Using the stick as an example here. Obviously, it's much big. In real life, it was much bigger. Tying it around, and basically using the cordage to help me pull. And at the other end of it, I added I think a fixed loop in there. Yeah, a fixed loop in there. So I would just put a fixed loop. I can't tighten or expand. Put a stick through it that was nearby and used it to pull, so I could pull like this, pull that log forward. It was so much easier. It might look weird or whatever, but I didn't care. I'm making it easier for myself. Like, to drag it across. And I was dragging it across for like 100 some feet at least. Through different terrain, gravel slash grass and stuff like that. Because the grass would actually apply so much friction from the grass, it would slow it down and it's harder to drag it. But since I'm using line and stuff like that, and I can actually have kind of like a handle type bar, so I can use both hands to pull forward, use my body weight to lean back and stuff like that. I thought that was very useful. So definitely cordage was very useful on this trip. And I learned a little bit more about it. I was like, oh, hey, I guess I could apply it here and there and stuff like that. So yeah, I think I'm gonna call this live stream in the next 5 minutes. So that's 5 minutes for this live stream. I'm already over the hour mark, anyways. Ooh, yeah, that would be. So, anyways, I appreciate everyone that dropped by. X-Ray Zulu here, Gray 1107, Billy Bird Rollis, and Puppy Breath. Thank you for your excellent channel support. Big Oval. Just kidding. Of course, Amanda here. Thank you for taking the time to drop in and stuff like that. AOK Fortune Adventures, Great Man Outdoors. I think I got everyone on that. And Texas Little Star came in the beginning here. So, thank you for all those people that took the time to watch this while it was live. And if you're watching on the replay, thank you for taking the time to watch a replay of this video. So in the last couple minutes here, anyone have any questions or comments right now? Now is a good time. Oh, I guess I also found some containers too. But now they're not fully metal, so they're kind of half metal, half plastic, so can't really char in it, but I can use it as a container still for some other stuff. Oh, hey, thanks Billy Bird and Rose, I appreciate it. Yes, of course. You too, X-Ray Zulu, I appreciate your channel support. You come by the live streams as much as you can. I appreciate it. And you provide some constructive type of feedback, which I enjoy very much so. Thanks, Gray. Always in creation mode, 98.6% of the time. Because there's that 1.4% of the time that I'm sleeping, showering, and eating. Or live streaming. typing. Just kidding. Let's see here. I think that's pretty much it here. For what kind of on this kind of story, camping story, trip thingy, whatever you want to call it. About 90 seconds here, I guess, right? Alright. So, yeah. Well, I guess I'll just end it. So thanks for everyone that dropped by. I appreciate all your channel support, all your supportive, increasing the thumbs up, the view count, the watch time. I appreciate it. I appreciate all the time you can spare. You know, you don't have to drop by, but you do, and I appreciate it. I appreciate it. So, special thanks from CR to all those that are watching and have been watching the content that I release, whatever it is. You know, maybe you're only dropping by for 1 or 2 videos. Maybe you drop by for a full hour. You know, I appreciate it all. So, it's time for an outro, right? So as the world changes, so must oneself. To reach a new level of skill and knowledge, one must practice. A single person can't help everyone in this world. But one person, no matter your age, gender, race, nationality, or how much little or how much more you know, can help someone in this world. And until the next video for me, it's peace out from the guy that's 98.6% of the time in creation mode. Peace out from CR, and I'll catch you next time, and take care and enjoy the day.